right now, right in the middle of a 105-degree Oklahoma summer, there are thousands of pounds of raw meat, dairy, and prepped food just sitting there.
Yeah, behind just a single, really thin metal door.
Exactly. And if the temperature inside that room, if it drifts up by just 6 degrees, this kind of biological countdown clock just starts ticking.
It does. And, if the people working in that kitchen don't catch it in time, the financial devastation it could easily close the business for good.
It's terrifying when you think about it.
It is a razor-thin margin for error. We take for granted that the food we order at a restaurant is safe.
Right. We just assume it is.
Yeah, but that safety relies entirely on this crazy mechanical balancing act that is, it's constantly fighting the very limits of thermodynamics.
Welcome to a new deep dive. Today, we are opening that metal door and, well, stepping into the brutal, high-stakes, and completely invisible world of commercial refrigeration.
It really is a hidden world.
It is. Specifically, we want to look at why restaurant walk-in coolers just spectacularly fail when the heat outside is at its absolute worst.
Which is when you need them the most, obviously.
Right. And to really understand this, we are unpacking a really fascinating stack of information today. We have the operating data and decades of actual field notes from a 45-year HVAC master named Dave Hartzell.
Out in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, he owns Hartzell's Heat and Air out in Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And we're taking his ground-level realities, like what he actually sees in these kitchens, and putting them right up against the incredibly strict FDA food code regulations.
It's honestly the perfect pairing of sources because, it shows you the theory versus the gritty reality.
Sure.
Like air conditioning, your living room gets all the attention in the summer, right? Everybody talks about their AC. But commercial refrigeration, that is where the actual drama lives.
The stakes are just so much higher.
The financial risk is staggering, and the sheer mechanics of keeping a giant metal box freezing cold in the middle of an August heat wave, it's absolutely punishing.
And so our mission today is to really help you understand those hidden physics. We want to show you why these machines actually fail.
Because it's rarely a sudden thing, right?
Right. Spoiler alert, Hartzell's data shows it is rarely a sudden, out-of-the-blue death. And we'll talk about how small-town business owners can actually spot the warning signs to, prevent a catastrophic Friday night disaster.
Yeah, nobody wants a Friday night disaster.
But before we get into the failures, let's just make sure we are all picturing the exact same thing when we talk about these machines. We all have a refrigerator in our kitchen, but a commercial walk-in operates on a completely different scale, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. And to understand the scale, it helps to just briefly visualize how any refrigeration system works.
Okay, lay it out for us.
It's essentially split into two halves. You have the evaporator coil, which sits inside the cold box and absorbs the heat from the room.
Right, the part that's actually inside the cooler.
Exactly. And then you have the condensing unit. That's that big, loud piece of machinery usually sitting outside, which takes all that trapped heat and just rejects it into the outside air.
Okay, so inside absorbs, outside spits it out.
Yeah, and the refrigerant is just the fluid pumping between them, carrying the heat from the inside to the outside.
That makes perfect sense. But the workload a restaurant cooler carries compared to, say, the AC sitting outside a residential house, I was looking at this, and the contrast is just wild. Wait, isn't it all just the exact same refrigerant cycle, though?
Fundamentally, yes. The physics are identical. The compressor, the refrigerant, the coils, it's the same basic science. But it all comes down to the sheer mathematical lift required.
The lift, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about your home. To maintain a comfortable, say, 75 degrees inside your living room, your home AC uses an indoor coil that runs at about 40 degrees.
Okay.
So that's a 35-degree temperature difference. It's a very manageable lift for the compressor. It's not working that hard.
Right. But then contrast that with a walk-in cooler in a busy restaurant. It has to hold the air inside at a constant 35 to 38 degrees.
Exactly.
So to achieve that, its evaporator coil has to be running way down in the 20s. And walk-in freezer is even crazier, right? It has to maintain 0 to minus 10 degrees.
Which means a coil that is even colder than that.
Okay, so the way I am picturing this, based on those crazy temperature differences, if my home air conditioning unit is like a person taking a casual, breezy evening stroll.
I like this analogy already.
Yeah, so if that's a casual stroll, then a commercial walk-in cooler is like a person running an ultramarathon uphill wearing a weighted vest inside a sauna.
That is extremely accurate.
And they're doing it 365 days a year without a single break. A home AC gets to cycle off, right? gets a cool evening to rest. A walk-in cooler just never stops running the race.
It never stops. That is the perfect way to visualize it. And it really highlights the stakes here. Comfort cooling for a house is just about sweat, but refrigeration. Refrigeration is about absolute survival.
Which brings us back to the FDA.
Yes. The FDA food code is ruthless on this point. It strictly mandates that cold holding for food must be at 41 degrees or below. Full stop. No exceptions.
And that number isn't just arbitrary, is it?
Not at all. At 42 degrees, dangerous bacteria-like, the kind that cause massive foodborne illness outbreaks, they begin to rapidly multiply.
So if a cooler drifts up to, say, 50 degrees, that countdown clock we mentioned earlier becomes a very real, very fast reality.
Very fast. And think about what is on the line. It's thousands of dollars of inventory. You've got dairy, raw meat, completely prepped meals that are just sitting there ready for a busy weekend service.
Yeah, downtime in a commercial kitchen isn't measured in comfort. It's literally measured in dollars per hour.
Exactly. And if you are a small-town restaurant, in the middle of Oklahoma, you can't just magically summon a massive replacement food truck 2 hours before the Friday evening dinner rush.
Yeah, you're just out of luck.
Right. If the box gets warm, you lose everything. You shut down.
Wow. Okay, so because these machines are running this constant uphill ultramarathon, their physical environment essentially becomes their biggest enemy.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, like, a home AC unit gets to sit in a nice grassy yard, maybe in the shade. A commercial unit is rarely that lucky, which kind of dictates where they suffer the most.
But right, location is everything.
So the big loud half of the system, the condensing unit that has to reject all the heat, can basically live in 3 places. Outside on a concrete pad up on the roof, or actually inside the kitchen on top of the walk-in box.
And every single one of those locations presents a completely unique nightmare for the machine.
Let's hear it.
Let's say the unit is outside on a pad. It has to endure an Oklahoma heat wave. It's sitting there breathing 105-degree air while trying to cool a 35-degree box.
Which is already struggling.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if it's on a dark, flat commercial roof, the radiant heat from the sun baking that surface, it can push the ambient air right around the machine, 220 degrees or more.
That is just brutal. But looking through Hartzell's field data, the units that are inside face a totally different kind of threat.
Oh, the inside ones, yeah.
Because if the condenser is sitting inside the kitchen, it has to choke on air that has already been superheated by the fryers and the ovens.
Right.
But the heat isn't even the deadliest part. There is a specific term in the field notes that kept coming up, and honestly, it sounds like an absolute nightmare. Grease felt.
Grease felt. Ugh. It is the #1 summer killer of restaurant refrigeration.
It just sounds disgusting. What is it?
Well, when cooks fry food or, sear burgers on a flat top, they're releasing this invisible aerosolized mist of cooking grease right into the air.
Okay.
And sure, the exhaust hoods catch a lot of it, but they don't catch all of it.
Yeah.
So this fine mist floats through the kitchen and gets sucked directly into the condenser coil of the refrigeration unit.
Ah, so the grease coats the metal fins, but it's a kitchen, so there is also, flour dust, cardboard dust, just regular dirt floating around?
Exactly. And the grease basically acts like a glue. Yeah, it binds perfectly with the airborne dust. Layer after layer, day after day, it builds up until it forms a literal thick blanket across the metal fins of the coil, and it looks and feels exactly like heavy felt.
Ugh, grease felt. Okay, logically I have to ask, if kitchen grease inside the building is so deadly to these machines, why doesn't every single restaurant just put their condenser up on the roof? Like, just get it out of the kitchen entirely.
It's a great question, but it really comes down to trade-offs and building costs.
Costs, right.
Yeah, running copper refrigerant lines all the way from a ground floor kitchen up to a 3-story roof, that is incredibly expensive to install.
Oh, that makes sense.
Plus, when you put it on the roof, you are trading the grease for that 120-degree radiant heat we just talked about.
Right, the baking sun.
Exactly. The machine won't choke on dust, but the extreme heat means the compressor has to work incredibly hard just to push the heat out into the already boiling surrounding air. So it's a brutal choice. Do you want to choke on grease or bake in the sun?
Neither sounds great. So let's break down the actual mechanical cascade of death here.
Yeah.
Because a listener might hear grease felt and think, okay, it's a little dirty, what's the big deal? What actually happens inside the machinery when it gets coated in this stuff?
Okay, so to release heat, the system absolutely requires airflow. The hot refrigerant inside the coil needs the outside air to pass over the metal fins to just, carry the heat away.
Right.
When grease felt covers that coil, The air just cannot get through. The heat gets completely trapped. So the head pressure inside the system starts to violently climb.
Okay, let's pause and explain head pressure for a second.
Yeah.
That is essentially like taking a garden hose and kinking it in the middle, right?
That's a really good way to look at it.
The pump is still trying to push water through, but the water has nowhere to go, so the pressure just builds up right behind the kink until something bursts.
That is exactly what happens. The compressor is the pump in this scenario. As the pressure climbs because the heat can't escape, the compressor has to work harder and harder to force the refrigerant through the lines.
It's just straining.
The motor strains heavily, and because it's straining, the amp draw spikes, which means the motor is pulling more and more electricity from the wall just to try and keep spinning.
So it's pulling too much power, and it starts running incredibly hot.
Yes, and eventually, the built-in high-pressure safeties might trip to try and save the machine, which shuts the whole thing down right in the middle of a dinner rush.
Which is bad enough.
Right, but worse, what if the safeties fail? Then the internal electrical windings inside the compressor literally cook.
Oh, wow.
The insulation on the copper wires inside the motor just melts away, creating a dead short, and then bam! The compressor is completely dead.
And all of that catastrophic electrical failure happens just because of a blanket of greasy dust blocking the airflow.
Yep, just airflow.
But the preventative fix is remarkably straightforward, isn't it?
Right.
It just requires a proper chemical coil cleaning.
Exactly. Not just taking a brush and brushing off the dust, but using foaming chemical cleaners that actually break down the grease. And for a busy kitchen in the summer, that needs to be done monthly.
It's just basic preventative medicine.
Really is.
So we have established how heat and grease attack the system from the outside. But what really surprised me in the data is that the ultimate enemy actually comes from the inside of the box.
Yes.
And human behavior is the trigger.
The front lines of commercial refrigeration are really at the door.
Think about a busy restaurant service. That heavy walk-in door swings open hundreds of times a day. Every single time a server grabs a salad or a prep cook grabs a steak, the deeply humid, hot Oklahoma summer air just completely dumps into the cold box.
Dumps right in. And basic physics dictates that moisture doesn't just vanish, right? Cold air simply cannot hold as much moisture as warm air.
Okay.
So when that hot, humid air hits a 35-degree environment, the water vapor condenses instantly, and it gets drawn straight into the coldest part of the entire room, which is the evaporator coil hanging from the ceiling.
And because that coil is running in the 20s, like we said earlier, the moisture doesn't just land as water, it lands right on the metal fins as frost.
Exactly, solid frost.
Now, I am going to push back on this a little because to the average person, this feels a bit counterintuitive.
How so?
If the entire goal of this giant machine is to keep the box freezing cold, isn't an evaporator coil covered in a thick layer of solid ice exactly what we want? I mean, doesn't ice equal cold?
It is the single most common misconception, and understanding why it's wrong is just crucial.
Okay, tell me why I'm wrong.
Think about why people can survive inside an igloo in the freezing Arctic. Ice is actually a fantastic thermal insulator. It traps heat.
Oh!
Yeah. In a refrigeration system, the metal fins of the coil are highly conductive. They are designed to easily absorb heat from the warm air circulating in the room.
But ice is a terrible conductor.
Exactly. When you wrap those conductive metal fins in a layer of ice, you have just created a thermal barrier. The fans are blowing the room air right over the ice, but the air never actually touches the cold metal underneath.
Oh, wow. So the ice is literally acting like a thick winter blanket, shielding the coil from doing its job.
You nailed it. The system's cooling capacity just plummets. The box starts warming up, the compressor outside kicks into absolute overdrive trying to compensate, but it can't because the ice is blocking the heat transfer.
That is fascinating. And what are the main culprits for all this extra humidity getting in?
It's usually torn or hardened rubber door gaskets that are just leaking air 24 hours a day. Or, and this is the absolute deadliest habit, the delivery driver who props the heavy walk-in door wide open with a milk crate for like 20 minutes straight while they unload the truck.
Oh, man. Yeah.
They are funneling a literal river of humidity directly onto the coil.
So the engineers who design these machines obviously know that frost is inevitable, right?
Yeah.
It's built into the physics.
Yeah.
So they design automated defenses.
They do.
Like coolers, the ones holding around 35 degrees, mostly defrost using off-cycle fans. The cooling shuts off, but the fans keep blowing that 35-degree air over the coil to slowly melt the frost.
Right.
But freezers, which are way below freezing, they have to use actual electric heaters strapped directly to the coil, right? Controlled by timers that turn on for short bursts a few times a day.
Yeah, it's a very delicate automated dance, but, components fail. A timer sticks or an electric heater burns out, and when that happens, the frost wins incredibly fast.
How fast are we talking?
Within a day or two, that evaporator coil turns into a solid, impenetrable block of ice. The field notes literally describe ice creeping out of the metal fan shrouds like a miniature glacier.
And this is where we see the tragic irony of human behavior in a commercial kitchen. Because a stressed, hurried line cook walks into the cooler, sees the thermometer creeping up to 55 degrees.
Oh, no, I know it's going.
Sees the massive block of ice on the ceiling, and decides they're going to solve the problem themselves right then and there.
It is the cardinal sin of kitchens. They grab a $10 steel prep knife from the line, and they just start violently hacking and chipping at the ice block to clear it.
Which is horrifying, because they are swinging a sharp blade millimeters away from highly pressurized, really fragile copper tubing.
And inevitably, they slip. The knife pierces the refrigerant coil, all the refrigerant violently vents into the room, and just like that, the system is instantly completely destroyed.
Just gone.
Yeah. A hurried employee with a $10 prep knife just caused thousands of dollars in mechanical damage, completely ruined the evaporator, and pretty much guaranteed the loss of all the food. And the crazy part? Every single year, service technicians are called out to replace totally ruined equipment because of this exact scenario.
So if a listener manages a kitchen or works in one, and they are staring at a glacier growing out of their ceiling, what is the actual correct response?
Kill the power. You have to turn the unit off at the breaker, open the door, and just let it melt naturally. Put a box fan in there if you need to speed up the melting process.
Or step away.
Step away, put the knife down, and then call a professional to fix the broken timer or heater that actually caused the ice buildup in the first place.
Good advice. And while that ice is melting naturally, there is another invisible threat tied to the system. The drain line.
Oh, the drain lines.
Right, because all that meltwater from a defrost cycle has to leave the box through a PVC drain pipe. But just like the condenser coils outside collect grease, these drain pipes get plugged up with kitchen grime, food particles, and grease.
They do. And when a drain line plugs inside a freezer, the next time it goes into a defrost cycle, the melting water has nowhere to go. It backs up into the drain pan, overflows, and immediately recreases.
Because it's still a freezer.
Exactly. So eventually you get this massive ice dam underneath the unit, or just water sheeting entirely across the walk-in floor.
Which is an incredible slip hazard for the staff.
Yeah.
And in a regular cooler, I imagine a backed-up drain means dirty, stagnant water is potentially dripping right onto the food prep areas.
Yeah, it's really unsanitary. It sounds minor, but a clogged drain line actually causes a remarkable share of the most expensive emergency service calls.
Up to this point, we have spent a lot of time on the massive walk-ins, the absolute behemoths of the kitchen.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about the little siblings, right? The reach-ins and the prep tables.
The little guys.
Yeah, these are the smaller coolers sitting right on the cook line where chefs keep the sliced tomatoes, the cheese, the garnishes.
The dynamics change significantly with these smaller units because of one crucial concept in thermodynamics, and that is thermal mass.
This is a fascinating principle.
Yeah?
Let's break down thermal mass.
Okay.
A giant walk-in cooler is packed with thousands of pounds of cold meat, cold liquids, dense vegetables. All that cold, dense matter acts like a giant thermal battery, right?
Exactly. If someone opens the door and lets some warm air in, those frozen turkeys and kegs of beer absorb the heat fluctuation, keeping the ambient temperature relatively stable.
They hold the cold.
They hold the cold. Now contrast that with a small prep table on a cook line. A reach-in has almost no thermal mass. It contains a few shallow pans of food, and the rest is just empty air.
And air doesn't hold temperature well.
Right. Air has virtually no density, so when something goes wrong or a door is left open, all the cold air literally just falls out onto the floor, and the unit fails fast. I mean, it can lose its safe holding temperature in a matter of minutes.
And the environments these smaller units live in are the absolute worst.
The worst.
Their tiny condensers are located right down on the floor, so they easily suck up flour dust from the bakery station or dirt from sweeping.
Yeah, they just act like vacuums.
Plus, the human abuse they take is constant. Prep tables have those metal lids on top. Cooks get busy and just leave the lids flipped open through the entire 3-hour dinner service. Or they stack the stainless steel pans of food way above the fill line, which physically blocks the cold air vents inside the cabinet.
It is a vital point for any owner to understand. When a manager complains that a reach-in, quote, won't hold temp, it is almost never a mechanical failure.
Really?
Yeah, it is almost never low refrigerant. It is almost entirely airflow blockages and just bad operational habits.
Which brings us to arguably the most important part of this entire deep dive. Because listening to this, it all sounds terrifying.
It does.
A Friday night catastrophic failure, costing thousands of dollars in lost product and emergency fees.
Yeah.
But reading through Hartzell's field notes, the overriding theme is actually incredibly empowering.
It is, because these disasters are entirely preventable. A commercial refrigeration system never dies in secret. It leaves breadcrumbs for weeks.
It absolutely announces its own failure. The clues are right there in the open, provided you are willing to look for them.
Right.
So, synthesizing all this data, we have put together a 5-minute weekly checklist. This is for any restaurant owner, manager, or honestly anyone who just wants to see how fragile this infrastructure really is.
Right.
Step 1. Read and log the box thermometer at the exact same time every single day.
Because the trend tells the story. If the box is normally 36 degrees, and Tuesday it hits 37, Wednesday it's 38, Thursday it's 39, you do not wait for Friday night when it hits 45 and the food is spoiling.
You catch it early.
You call your technician on Thursday.
Step 2. Look at the condenser coil. Get a flashlight and shine it directly into the fins. If you cannot see the distinct metal lines, if it looks like a fuzzy, solid gray blanket of grease felt, it needs a chemical cleaning immediately.
Yep. Step 3 is the dollar bill test for your door gaskets.
Explain the physics of why this works, because it's brilliant.
It's so simple. It leverages the magnet inside the rubber gasket. Open the walk-in door, place a crisp $1 bill across the rubber seal, and close the door directly on it. Now, try to pull the dollar bill out.
Okay, and what are we feeling for?
If you feel resistance, if the magnet in the door firmly grips the paper, your seal is still good. But if the dollar bill just slides out with zero friction, the rubber has hardened or flattened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is no longer creating a seal, which means it is actively leaking hundreds of dollars of cold air and constantly dumping humidity inside.
Such a good test. Step 4. Open the box and look directly at the evaporator coil on the ceiling. A light, super thin dusting of frost is normal right before a defrost cycle kicks in, right?
Yeah, a thin layer is fine.
Yeah. But if you see thick, solid ice, or if frost returns rapidly the exact same day it melted, your automated defrost system is broken or your doors are leaking massive amounts of air.
Exactly. And finally, step 5. Watch your staff during the peak rush hour. Are they propping the heavy door open with a milk crate during deliveries? Do you have slow closing hinges that leave the door cracked open for 30 seconds after someone walks away?
Because those aren't just bad habits.
No, those are product loss habits.
And if you go through that checklist and you see the temperatures trending up or the thick frost returning or the unit short cycling on and off rapidly, you call the professionals before the weekend hits.
Definitely.
For folks out in central and northwest Oklahoma, places like Kingfisher, Canadian, Garfield, Logan counties, Hartzell's Heat and Air lays out exactly what this looks like. It is totally transparent. They run a straight $99 dispatch, $111 diagnostic, and they provide the findings in writing before they touch a single wrench.
Which is great. You know, committing to a maintenance schedule timed right before the deep summer hits, having a professional chemically clean the coils, check the gaskets, and verify the refrigerant charge is fundamentally the cheapest insurance policy a walk-in cooler full of expensive product can possibly buy.
It is just so deeply logical when you look at the mechanics. I mean, a thin rubber gasket and a clean metal coil are literally the only things standing between a restaurant's financial survival and thousands of dollars of rotting food.
It definitely forces you to look at the bigger picture. We walk into a restaurant, we order a meal, and we just assume the cold chain that brought that food to our plate is indestructible.
We take it totally for granted.
We do. But it is actually incredibly delicate. It is a massive infrastructure balancing on a razor's edge of physics and daily maintenance.
Which leaves you with a really provocative thought to mull over today. If our entire local food supply chain, the meat, the dairy, the fresh produce, relies so heavily on these fragile machines running at the absolute limits of their physical capacity in 105-degree heat, what happens next? If deep summer temperatures permanently rise by just a few degrees in places like Oklahoma over the next decade, will the fundamental physics of these vital cooling machines simply hit a breaking point? Will we have to completely redesign how we store food simply because the air outside is just too hot to push the heat into?
It is a profound question of thermodynamics, and, well, given the trends, it is a question we might be forced to answer on a massive scale sooner rather than later.
It definitely changes how you look at the air conditioning unit running outside your house right now. So the next time your home AC gives out and you are sitting on the couch sweating, just be grateful you aren't staring at a ticking clock on $3,000 of prime rib. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. Keep questioning the hidden systems that keep our world running. Stay cool out there, and we will catch you on the next one.